Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. So today we're diving into something completely unprecedented in the world of modern democracy. Seriously, if you thought you knew how political movements were born, prepare to have your expectations completely flipped on their head. We are literally witnessing the dawn of a bizarre, hilarious, and yet deeply fascinating new era of digital political movements sweeping across India. It's a world where internet satire isn't just, a way to blow off steam anymore. It's actually becoming the foundation for viral, highly organized action. So get comfortable because we're about to unpack the clash between two of the unlikeliest political juggernauts you will ever hear about, the Cockroach Janata Party and the National Parasitic Front.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Every major movement has an inciting incident, right? A spark that lights the power keg. Well, for this digital revolution, that spark came from a highly controversial remark. Chief Justice Kant made a comment comparing some unemployed youth to cockroaches and parasites. Now, normally in the traditional political landscape, a comment like this generates a pretty predictable cycle. A few days of intense digital outrage, some angry hashtags, maybe a primetime TV debate, and then everyone just moves on. But that is absolutely not what happened here. The internet, instead of just getting mad, actually decided to get organized.
And boom! Just like that, internet users totally weaponized this judicial insult. I mean, they took the absolute worst labels thrown at them and just wore them like a badge of honor. Practically overnight, we shifted from mere digital outrage to a full-scale arthropod-led parody organization. Welcome to India's most biologically diverse political era. People didn't just tweet their anger, they began to construct an entire satirical ecosystem around these insects and parasites, turning what was essentially an elitist insult into a massive unifying battle cry for a generation that is just really frustrated with the system.
So, that brings us to our first major player in this whole political theater. Section 1, the rise of the cockroaches, or the CJP.
The sheer, explosive, organic growth of this party is honestly staggering. It all started as a completely impulsive joke by a user named Abhijit Dipke, who basically just asked, what if all the cockroaches come together? The CJP proudly branded itself as the voice of the lazy and unemployed, with its official headquarters located, and I love this, wherever the Wi-Fi works. On day 1, May 16th, it officially launches. By days 2 through 5, the CJP crosses 1 million followers organically. To put that in perspective, that is 1 million followers for a party named after a household pest in less than a week. By week 2, actual sitting politicians like MPs Mahua Moitra and Kirti Azad are publicly engaging with them online. And then week 3 hits, and in a total masterstroke of performative protest, CJP volunteers physically host a Yamuna cleanup drive dressed entirely in giant cockroach suits. They literally took the insult to the streets and turned it into an act of real public service.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly why the movement resonated so incredibly hard. The CJP managed to anchor very real socioeconomic data to universally relatable youthful frustrations. So who exactly is the CJP supporter? Well, they're the resilient survivors of staggering unemployment, crushing inflation, and those notoriously high-stress entrance exams. But they're also surviving everyday cultural annoyances, the toxic, hyper-productive LinkedIn motivational posts, and of course, the nosy relatives constantly asking, "Beta, what are you doing these days?" They built a political identity not around caste or region, but around the shared, exhausting experience of just trying to survive as a young person in modern India. But, as we all know, nature abhors a vacuum, and so does Indian politics. Let's move to our next movement, Section 2. Enter the Parasitic Front, the NPF.
If the CJP became the voice of the resilient underdog, the NPF styled themselves as the chief opposition. They grabbed the other half of that original insult and just ran with it in an entirely different, incredibly theatrical direction. Their core philosophy tells you basically everything you need to know about their framing. Quote, "We attach ourselves to a broken system, not to feed off it, but to force it to change from within." It's just brilliant satirical constitutionalism. They're claiming to be citizens who are simply surviving a system that drains ordinary people while rewarding the powerful. They essentially took the accusation of being a parasite and flipped it into this noble insurgency against institutional rot.
It is super fascinating to look at the ideological contrast between these two. The Cockroach Janata Party represents pure meme populism. They are the resilient underclass that simply refuses to die, kind of like actual cockroaches surviving a nuclear fallout. On the flip side, the National Parasitic Front leans super heavily into revolutionary absurdism. They use this exaggerated activist language to satirically flip the parasite accusation right back at the elite system. They're parodying traditional identity politics, welfare fronts, and outrage campaigns all at the exact same time. It has created India's weirdest and arguably most self-aware coalition season ever.
Which naturally brings us to Section 3, the Manifesto Wars.
Now, what is really interesting here is the ultimate Trojan horse reveal of this entire movement, because beneath all the ridiculous names, the absurd aesthetics, and the giant insect costumes, both of these groups actually published mock manifestos that contained real, highly specific policy demands. For the CJP, this meant demanding no post-retirement Rajya Sabha seats for chief justices and strict action for deleted valid votes. They actually asked for a true 50% reservation for women right up to the cabinet level, action against media spreading misinformation, and long electoral bans for defecting politicians. Beneath the meme aesthetic, these are highly coherent, remarkably serious critiques of the political establishment. They use the joke of a cockroach party to completely bypass people's defenses and deliver some really sharp substantive commentary on institutional accountability.
The National Parasitic Front did something very similar, but they blended their serious governance requests with hilariously specific, hyper-relatable digital age annoyances. Their core demands include things like a criminal-free parliament and educated representatives, classic serious civic demands. But then they add roads that don't become literal rivers during monsoon season and Wi-Fi that doesn't require solving 11 fire hydrant CAPTCHAs just to pay your electricity bill online. They are speaking the exact unvarnished language of the modern, frustrated digital citizen.
So what does this all mean? Looking at the millions of followers, the real-world cleanup drives, the surprisingly robust manifestos, we really have to ask, is this merely a meme, or is it actually the beginning of a new kind of digital political protest movement? Are we witnessing a fundamental shift in how the youth engage with the democratic process?
Let's unpack that in Section 4, Participatory Satire, India's Meme Politics Era.
Political satire has always existed. We've had cartoonists and comedians puncturing political egos for decades. But that was passive. You consumed a cartoon, maybe chuckled, and moved on. What we're seeing now is participatory satire. Citizens aren't just consuming the joke, they are actively joining the party. They're designing the graphics, shaping the movement, and expanding the lore in real time. So the crucial point here is how this highlights the rapid evolution of protest. In older political movements, angry youth expressed their frustrations by marching with physical placards in the streets. It was physical, it was localized, it took time. But compare that to 2026's digital movements. Gen Z and millennial activists respond to a slight by launching fully functional websites, designing professional logos, drafting satirical constitutions, and gaining 80,000 followers before they've even had lunch. The speed and scale of this online-first activism is completely reshaping the political landscape.
Now, obviously, neither the CJP nor the NPF is officially recognized by the Election Commission of India. Well, at least not yet. You won't be seeing a cockroach on your actual ballot paper anytime soon. But we have to recognize that in today's digital political climate, absolute visibility basically equals genuine power. They forced mainstream media to cover their manifestos. They forced sitting politicians to actually interact with them. In a matter of weeks, they've achieved what many real, registered fringe political parties spend decades trying to do. They made millions of people stop, laugh, and really critically think about the system.
And that leaves us with one final, pretty provocative thought. In a massive, complex country that has historically been shaped by political fronts based on ideology, caste, language, and region, is it finally time for biological evolution to permanently reshape our political alliances? Whether these movements fade away next week or actually evolve into a permanent digital subculture, they have brilliantly exposed the absurdity of the current system. I really hope this explainer sheds some light on this incredibly fascinating phenomenon. Keep an eye on your timelines, because the cockroaches and the parasites just might be the most effective political critics we have right now. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and hey, keep questioning the system.